Yes, here we are, the Free Your Dragon podcast. This is a container where we acknowledge that we each have such power within us, dragon power, that is. And we're being called to unleash that power out into the world on the wings of our passion and our excitement to be of highest service to self, to others, to humanity, to consciousness. Win-wins across the board. When you're at your best, we're all at our best. When one rises, we all rise. That's how we are all connected. That's why we're all one. And with that being said, I got a beautiful soul brother with me today. Jake, this is my buddy Jake, my brother Jake. I'm going to introduce you real quick, Jake, to those listening in. So, Jake, I believe I've known you for about 2.5 years now, probably, right? About that. Jake has been a rock in my world. I'm 37 at the moment. Jake, how old are you right now?
26.
26. Now, there are people of all ages, of course, but definitely people in their 20s that just inspire me, and I admire them so much. And it just goes to show that age means nothing. And you're one of those people, Jake. Like the way you show up, and not just your leadership, but the playfulness in your leadership. And you call it embodied masculine leadership. And what I love about that is that it includes the feminine, and you bring that with such grace and such power, not force, but power. And that's magic. The way that you're able to hold group spaces, the way you're able to listen to people and reflect back what you hear. You've been an inspiration since day one, brother, and it's been a pleasure to be in the men's circles with you and to watch you rise and to watch you put yourself out there and go through your process of embodying that leadership. And you're doing group coaching, particularly with men. You're doing breath work on Insight Timer for a long time. You're really putting yourself out there. And for all the people listening in, like, you are all dragons, right? Everyone's a dragon, right, Jake? Really, truly. And the beautiful thing is we're a dragon tribe, and that tribe is an inclusive one. Everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome to step into their power, and you, brother, are a shining light. And playfulness is such a powerful thing. And like I said, you embody that like no other. So welcome, brother. Thank you for being here and spending time with us, and excited to hear all about what you have to say on the topic of shame. Is something we decided we want to talk about
Mm.
today. And we're just going to free flow and have a chat. And again, this is a container we're creating, and everybody that's listening to this is contributing to that container. You're with us in spirit. And thank you for being here. And Jake, thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate having you.
DJ. Thank you so much, brother. That intro has me grinning from ear to ear like a child, realizing something I've come to realize is and really appreciate and love is one, the way you started this entire episode just by absolutely lighting me up in a way that now I feel, well, I could feel the honesty and I could feel the truth in every one of the statements. And that's something I've always appreciated so deeply about you, is your capacity to actually see someone for who they are and then to unabashedly acknowledge it and verbalize it to them. I watch people light up in your world because of the way that you interact, because of the way that you encourage and support and uplift them with your language. And that's like, I don't know, I know the world is a better place because of it. And I know that these little like embers of dragons are just like bursting off when they get that level of appreciation, that level of love. So first off, incredible to be here with you. I'm so stoked. And Touching on the topic of shame, how interesting that, to acknowledge leadership and playfulness, because playfulness and shame, that's an interesting one, right? And I'm actually curious to explore that with you too, because
Hmm.
the relationship between these two,
Hmm.
it's almost, to me, it feels as though shame doesn't want you to play. Shame doesn't want us to experience levity, to experience freedom, inner freedom of expression.
Hmm.
And for me, play is that's such a big part of play, is to have a sense of freedom to express. And I know that's what made our men's group so special, is because it felt like there was genuine safety amongst us, that I could express in any way I wanted, as silly, as playful, as goofy, as miraculous, or spectacularly flailing as I wanted to, and it wasn't going to be judged or criticized. It was going to be met with love, and it wasn't going to be shamed.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
one of the pieces for me that just felt so. And so I actually want to reflect this back to you and just get your, if we play with this idea of shame in your eyes, and maybe even through the lens of freeing your dragon as well, what role shame plays there. What is shame? How do you describe it?
Mm. It's funny. Before coming on, I was like, should I look up the like what shame actually means? But no. What's coming up for me is shame is something that makes me not want to be in my body. It makes me not want to be me, and it makes me want to just like do the ninja smoke grenade and just like disappear. It makes me want to numb myself, typically through food. Like I feel it in my stomach. At least that's how there's different shames, right? Like one of them is like remembering something I said, and I just like instantly my whole body would just like, particularly the back of my heart would just like close because I feel like I did something that's bad. Shame means bad. I should be ashamed because I did something bad. Like shame is like it's like if I had 100 people in front of me, it's like there's like they can point at me and say, yeah, you should feel bad for doing that. And I think shame, what comes up for me as well is like it's acceptance. It's accepting that it happened and accepting that people may have an opinion of that, and then accepting my own opinion of myself. Like how do I hold the space for the shame? And it can be small things. Like I actually wanted to bring it back to our men's circle. So Jake and I and two of our other brothers, we would always start our men's circles by going to the beach in Costa Rica, in Samara specifically, and we just like bring all the toys and just like make up games and just like play. And one of our brothers would always like we would play like sports physical games, and he would bring up things from his past, like, oh man, I missed the ball, and like we would try to play games where we would remember the one where like we there were three people in a row and we'd throw the frisbee and we had to like as the frisbee was coming over us, knock it to the person behind us with one touch, and then they had to throw it to the person behind them one touch, and then the next person had to catch it. The last person had to catch it. And I remember our brother was at the back and he would miss it. And he would feel bad because it brought him back to being that kid. That's what he would share. And he would share it with us on the spot. And I loved that. And there was shame there. And we stayed with him until it got dark, stayed with us together as a group until it got dark until we caught it. Remember that? And we just hugged. Remember that? It was amazing. Um, and so I to wrap that up on that, what shame means, and then I'm curious to hear how you see it. It's like, again, if shame is hmm, something that leads me to not want to be in my body and not want to be in the present moment, like I'm either in the past or the future. When I'm playing, it's playfulness means to be present in the moment. It's almost the opposite of shame. in that sense. Like that's how I see that. So playfulness for that reason is just so important. And there's so many ways to play, dancing, being goofy, giggling, like all of that. So I'm just curious, like, does any of what I just shared resonate? And what are your views on shame? Like, what is shame for you, bro? Tell me. What does it
Mm.
mean for you?
D, I really appreciate you sharing all that because it resonates so deeply. I love that you said play is like to be deeply present in the body, and I have got a very similar relationship to shame and the way that I view it because of my experience with it. For me, it is in the body, it's in the gut. It feels closing, like it doesn't want to be seen, it doesn't want to be touched, it doesn't want to be acknowledged. It in my body feels very dark and heavy. Um, Between my chest and my gut is kind of where I experience shame. And like you mentioned, shame in my body sits kind of in that sacral center, which is interesting because it's right in my digestive tract. And it feels like if I eat enough food, I can suppress it and I can kind of bury the shame with food. And I figure that by overeating, like when I notice something that I've done in my relationship or something that comes up from the past, that doesn't feel good, that starts to make me feel icky about myself or feel inferior or um, yeah, the feeling of shame that I'm bad, that I am wrong, that I am dirty or gross, that I am immature, that all of these things come up and it starts to become overwhelming in my body. Like I really don't want to look at it. And I feel that same sense of when shame arises, it's a trigger for dissociation. It's a trigger to run or hide from the emotion itself. It's like shame starts to rear its head and everything in me wants to run away from it. And so I do that by overeating or by distracting myself with work or with working out or with just like I know I felt super there was shame that came up a couple days ago and I'm just witnessing it at this point and I just start biking into town and I'm just hopping from grocery store to grocery store like buying an ice cream bar and I eat it and then I drive to the next super and I grab a different one and I eat it. I'm like this is brutal. Like I there's inner turmoil and I'm witnessing it and and then I'm judging it and it's getting worse, right? This spiral, this shame judgment spiral. Something a mentor introduced me to was the differentiation between shame and guilt and the way that this really actually helped me and continues to serve me.
Mhm.
So guilt being I have done something bad or wrong. So something that I've done, an action, a choice, or a behavior is that's leaving me feeling guilty. So example, if you cheated on your partner. Okay, maybe I feel an immense amount of guilt around this. Versus shame is I am a bad person. I am wrong. So the differentiation between I did something wrong and I am wrong. I did something bad and I am bad. Guilt says I did something bad. Like example, I sold an iPhone in high school that I knew was broken and didn't hold a charge and I didn't tell the guy about it. And I felt so guilty about it and it ended up being like a close friend of mine. I met him through Facebook, and ended up we met up somewhere, and it was a dude I knew, and I was like, oh no, like, I still sold it to him, and then 3 years later, the guilt was eating at me, and at the time I was in a better financial position, so I literally paid him the money back 3 years later because the guilt was eating at me so much. But that was I did a bad thing, like I made a bad choice, I did a bad behavior, I feel guilt versus the shame, which is I'm a bad person. It's indistinguishable from me. The behavior becomes wrapped in the identity. And I think that's why shame is that can be so heavy for us is because it's an identifier, it's an identity statement. It's not, yeah, I feel guilty that I did that. Sure, but I can choose not to do that. Versus I feel ashamed that I did that. It's so heavy, it's so dark because it's who I am. It's an identifier. That's why I think so when I was able to differentiate those and go, okay, it's not actually maybe there is shame there, but I now it's something I can look at and that needs to be loved and transmuted. So very much so resonating with shame being a dark makes me want to get out of my body, makes me not want to feel it. And that differentiation has served me greatly.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's that's really powerful because like I said, guilt is like something that you did and something that happened. You can point to it, you can pinpoint it, you can work with it. Where shame is just like it can go into like every pore of your body. And it's just like, like you said, you feel it in your now we both feel it in the same place and we have the same way of coping with it. And we just numb it with food. And unfortunately it works. It really pushes it back down. Now, I know it's coming up to be processed, and I've sat with it, with the whole like emotions are emotions, and I don't want to label one as good and one as bad. It just is. So I'm gonna let it be. There is a little bit of space that opens up with that, but it keeps coming back. So it's like, okay, where is the shame? And I'm kind of in a weird place right now where I'm just like observing this identity that I've created. Call it the ego, right? Like the ego identity. Which is nothing but an amalgamation of patterns, right? It's just all the patterns that make us who we are in this moment and who we've been up to then. And there's some anger there. I'm like, what is it in my life that makes me feel that why is there shame? Like, what the fuck? Like, I'm a little like, what the fuck? Like, seriously, like I was thinking about it today driving in the car. Like, there's nothing that anyone can tell me that would make them not worthy of love. It's either unconditional love or it's not love. If you tell me that you murdered 15 people, yes, you should have the consequences for that, and you should probably be sequestered from society, but it doesn't mean that you don't deserve love. Like, we need to take it this far. Unconditional love is unconditional love. And funny enough, I was just coming through, I was watching this thing about Kanye. Apparently, Kanye said that he loved Hitler. And the comment was like, yeah, because he thinks like he wants to think that he's Jesus and think like Jesus, and Jesus is unconditionally loving. So everybody's deserving of love. And like even saying that, there's a little bit something that comes up. But I kind of want to boldly say in my dragon way, like, fuck that too. You know what? Everybody deserves love. I deserve love. You deserve love. And it's the weirdest thing that the people that truly try to always show up with their best self and hold other people to their highest essence are the ones that carry the most shame. Like, what the fuck is that about? And I know I'm speaking a lot of like, there's no filter today because that's part of it. I feel like the shame I feel is that I'm muffling myself. I'm like holding my hand over my own mouth and not saying what I want to say because I'm afraid of what people are going to think. Like the people pleasing, call it that.
Mm.
And I feel it. Like sometimes I'm literally sitting in a group and I just feel uncomfortable in my own body. And I don't know if it's shame or not, but it is this like whole thing about like, who do I need to be right now? Like, who do these people need me to be? Who do they want me to be? How do I get accepted? How do I make them feel safe so that I can feel safe because I feel them? I'm
Mm.
sensitive to that. It's my superpower, but it's a double edge. And that was a whole lot of stuff I'm expressing, but I feel like I'm releasing as we speak. And I want to ask you, like, what's coming up for you as I'm sharing this? I know we share so many themes,
Mm.
which is why we're part of the same soul dragon tribe and why you're my soul brother. And we've always had that. I'm just curious, like, what's coming up for you? Like, what are you feeling?
Mm. First off, it feels good just to hear you speak. As soon as you mentioned like you feel some anger coming up, and then you were able to actually give voice to it, my entire body relaxed, like my shoulders dropped down. I just went, "Fuck yeah!" Like, let it fly, let it fly. And that statement, there's a lot that stirred for me because I felt a little bit like, someone kills 15 people, they're still deserving of love. And what came up for me was Absolutely. Because them being unconditionally loved, just to stick with this point of this example because you used it, there can be consequences for actions. There can be accountability. There can be
Mhm.
responsibility held. And the only way that this person is going to heal is through love. To withhold love is not going to fix the problem. To withhold love is not going to heal anything. Love is what actually is going to be the healing factor. That's the healing component. And so there needs to be love, especially in this case where you imagine someone is committing these intense causes of pain or harm. Like, what are they lacking in their life? A level of connection, a level of love. Because maybe if they were filled with love, if they were filled with some sense of connection to something bigger than them, the people around them, to their own hearts, they may not feel the need to do this. And that was the point on shame that became so clear to me, that the fundamental energetic imprint that shame carries is I'm not worthy of love.
Mhm. 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 Jake, what have you done in your life, or what is it about you that you feel is not lovable? What is it about you that shame is there? I know this is a big question, but I this is what's coming through.
Yeah,
And I hear
this
everything you
is a
just
big
said,
one.
but I'm just this
This
is
is
let's
no,
dive
no,
in. Let's
taking
do it.
it.
Into the
This
fire,
is
brother.
real.
Let's
This is
go. Let's go.
real.
This is where the dragons hatch because oh fuck. Oh.
Yeah, and this breathe into this one.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm able to, for someone who hasn't looked at shame or is just being exposed to it, to some of their insecurities at the points that feel unlovable for the first time, prior to doing shadow work or doing shame work, I just want to preface that I think it's important to have cultivated either a compassionate or gentle or loving inner dialogue, and or to have someone in the space to be able to hold that loving compassion space for you, because to dig into that deep hole and not have a way out or not have a voice, because if it's met with criticism, or it's going to deepen the shame. And so I know that I can open to this because of the work I've done and because of who I'm sitting in front of right now,
Right.
right?
And just to jump into that real quick, something that came up today, it was reinforced by a friend of mine. It's like sometimes you just need the witness. Like you want the witness there for that very reason, to immediately get that feedback, knowing you're safe, knowing that it's a container of unconditional love, because you are loved, man. Like I love you so much. And I love you for your imperfection. I love you for you showing up authentically and raw. Like, yeah. So with that container created, the love is there. T- t- I got you, brother. Tell me,
Yeah.
see where it takes you. See where it takes us.
I'm just sitting with it and noticing what different stories or narratives come up. The one that, and maybe I'm unearthing a couple of these as we speak. So, but stepping into a new into a relationship, into a conscious partnership, the immature ways in which I still sometimes deal with triggers or emotions, um, the way in which I express my anger, which can be very either closed and completely stonewalled, or overly expressive and harmful and volatile with language, that feels unlovable. as a man wanting to be someone who provides for myself and for the family, not having a steady source of income and asking that my partner does some work as well and not being able to necessarily pay the bills month after month, that feels like a point of shame, insecurity, or unlovableness. uh, there are so many big and little ones, and I'm trying to identify the places in my life that reinforce this story of unlovable, because some of them are very, very small. Like when I eat food that I know my body doesn't want, but then it bloats me and I feel really bad gas and bloating in my stomach, I feel unlovable. I feel gross. I feel like, I don't know, distended and like I'm not strong. Um, that's a very simple one that I
Mm.
think is like a point of insecurity or a point of shame. And that's maybe another layer to it, is noticing where insecurity, like, can I bring it even just as simple as insecurity? Things I'm insecure about, because insecurity is oftentimes where there's shame lying as well. Uh,
Mm.
and so it could be a lot of little things, like I'm unlovable because of nice guying, people pleasing is something I'm recovering from and I'm still learning from. And so every time I withhold my voice in conversation, every time I don't speak up in partnership, that feels unlovable, because I feel internally like I'm being dishonest, like I'm not saying something, like I'm not strong enough or courageous enough to actually speak, because I don't want to engage with conflict or upset someone else. So it's like I hold that. Um, and that feels like an unlovable trait, because if someone was doing that to me, I would feel, why don't you feel safe enough to speak to me?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm. Oof. I um I feel you on the food thing. Like that's like a daily thing too. Like I'll get like I'm like I didn't need to eat that extra plate. I didn't have to have that extra scoop. And I definitely didn't need to go into the kitchen and open up the pantry and grab a whole bar of chocolate and then justify by saying it's 85% cacao and then eating the whole thing. Even if it takes me two tries, I'm like, oh, I only did a third. That's great. And I'm like, yeah, but like I could do another third. I'm like, well, now it's basically done, so I might as well eat the whole thing.
But eating it in three smaller pieces feels way better than eating the whole thing at once. Let's just
Well,
agree on that then.
that's just what I'm like kind of managing it a little bit. But it's like, you know what it is too. It's like today I'm on the accepting thing. I know before this call, it's like part of it is just accepting it. Like I feel like so many things I fight about myself. And one of the things I'm learning to accept is like, okay, you know what? Food is a coping thing for me. Let's start with the awareness, acceptance being awareness, right? Let me accept that and say it out loud. It's a coping mechanism for me. It's
Mm.
not my identity. It's just a pattern that I have, right? Like we said, we're just an amalgamation of patterns which we can change from one day to the next. So what's the pattern? Eating a lot of eating a lot, just in general. When I feel that bubbling up of shame and people not feeling safe around me or not speaking up. And it's interesting, like I'll bring in a little bit of a human design lens into this. For those that are familiar with the human design system, it's the mechanics of your aura, it's how you're designed to interact with the world, and many other things. But like as a projector, my aura is meant to be is designed for me to be seen and recognized. But I'm not everyone's projector, and some people are just not going to recognize me. They're not going to see me. Like I can go into a group setting or even to a store and like someone will just like light up and I can see in their eyes that they see me and we're interacting, we're making each other feel good. It's very natural. And other times I just don't feel recognized at all. And I've started to realize this pattern. Like before, I would be like, okay, who do I need to be for this person to see me right now? Like I'm looking for that validation because I'm not feeling it on the inside. And I think that goes for everyone. Like I know, uh, Jake, you're a generator, right? Not manifesting generator, or are you? Which one are you again? Do you remember?
Pure generator, depending
You're a
on what
generator.
you're going
Which
with,
yeah, so
cosmic or
so meaning
tropical.
yeah, so you're here to yeah, that's right. You're here to respond, and some people you just don't respond to, right? And I know you interact with such grace. Like it's so interesting to watch you because I'm always curious like what's going on in your head because you make it seem so effortless. The way you interact with adults and children, it's like and I can see people gather around you as well, right? Now, just to bring it back, man, like what's coming up is like parenting myself and being kind to myself and actually knowing how to relax. Like
Mm,
this providing thing, man, has been such a huge topic for me as well. And I think for at least for most men listening here, I think it is. That is a huge one. I without getting stuck in like gender roles and how things are, like, the whole masculine, divine feminine. Divine masculine wants to be appreciated by the divine feminine, and the divine feminine wants to be supported. Not just provided for, but just supported emotionally, supported in where it is that they are so they can relax. It's basically like, let me support you by creating a supportive space so that you can fall into your feminine and be fully receptive and let that immense power move through you and not only fuel like you, but like the masculine and everything around her, right? And the providing thing has been a big one for me, especially in my past relationship. I made myself feel so ashamed about that. And I accept that it's still something I'm working through right now. Like I've made a decision to change, but I can still accept that that's there. I'm speaking it out loud. I don't want to give it more power.
mm,
But it's a thing and it's something that I think about a lot. And it's my lesson. Self-worth and your financials are right there. But then to also accept that this is where I am. Like there's part of me that fights it. Like I shouldn't be in this position. Like I look back at the last few months, I'm like, how the fuck am I in this position when quote unquote shouldn't be? Because I look at this, right? I'm like, this is like a current thing for me. I'm like, I look at what's been coming in. I'm like, I'm not even doing anything extravagant. I'm not buying electronics. I'm not taking fancy trips. I've taken a few trips, but like just to go home, see my family, and go to a funeral, like what's happening, And I'm just like, and that now actually does bring me back to this whole like the magic you seek is in the work you're avoiding, and there's just stuff I've been avoiding, stuff I just been hiding from myself. And that's okay. Like I just want to be loving, and I speak the words, and like actually to feel it in my body, right? To actually feel it for myself, like to feel the nervous system calm down too. Like my goodness, like just thinking about providing for myself and for someone else, and then feeling like there's part of me that feels like he can't, stresses me out. It's like a cortisol overload. It's just like pumping through my body. And it
mm.
makes me feel disconnected from myself, from my joy, from God, from others. And yeah, just I notice it's my deep lesson at the moment. And clearly this is what I'm meant to go through. And it's okay. The whole like I think the whole thing with shame is to just be okay with it. Can you be okay with your shame that you feel right now? Can you
Mm.
can you accept that you feel shame? Can you accept that, Jake? Shame that you feel for whatever it is that you feel shame for. Can you accept it?
Yeah, yeah. That's as you're speaking. That's literally what it needs. As you mentioned, like emotions on the there is no hierarchy of emotions. One is not better or worse than the other. They hold different energetic frequencies. Some are more comfortable and less comfortable to feel in the body, perhaps, but every single one of them holding immense amount of wisdom, guidance, and intelligence. And so to be able to, as we speak about shame, recognizing that there is a softness around it. I speak with it, and my voice becomes a little heavier, and I can feel it because that's the tone of shame. Is like, ooh, yeah, okay, it's heavy. And simultaneously, knowing that like it doesn't want to be seen, it doesn't want to be witnessed, and the magic is in what you are avoiding. The shame itself loves to be avoided. And yet simultaneously it's like, can I just witness it, welcome it in? Okay, hey, shame, you know what? You're welcome here. What's up? And be able to accept it. Say, you know what, it's okay. I feel a sense of shame. I am not shame. I am not bad. I am not wrong, but I can feel this feeling, these sensations in my body. But I recognize I've got the capacity to shift the relationship with it and to know that it is not who I am. Yeah, it's a sucky feeling, but I can witness my choices and go, you know what? Instead of, and really this roots back, right? For me, this is something that roots back. This shame is going to be a narrative from childhood that is now, how many years later, being reinforced through some action, through some behavior, through some choice, through some experience. And so when the shame arises, not to go, oh, you're right, I am unlovable. No, no. Feel it rise up. We know that feeling in the gut or in the chest or wherever it is that you feel shame in your body, the back of the heart, as you mentioned, and the neck and shoulders, it weighs. And then to recognize instead of going, you know, I'm going to drive around town and binge every chocolate bar in the area in a 10-mile radius, maybe I'm actually just going to sit back and recognize what story is coming up. Oh, there's an 8, 9, or 10-year-old version of myself who is feeling belittled, feeling abandoned, feeling rejected or humiliated or upset. And he feels bad. He feels wrong. He feels gross. He feels unlovable because of something in that moment. And so instead of hiding from the shame or running from it, recognizing more often than not, it's going to be a very young version of ourselves that just feels unlovable because of something. And to then extend that, to connect to that part of ourself, connect to that part of myself and extend it love. You know what? Okay. I love you. I still
Uh,
love you. You're still
you,
lovable.
you know what's coming through, and I love that you share that because I can feel you clearing your aura. I can feel a shift.
Mm.
And last week we talked about grief as a gateway to love. I feel like shame is a gateway to power because when you mentioned the younger you, it's because we feel powerless. Shame makes us feel powerless. And I feel like the shame is asking us what, like, the whole, like, the magic is in the work you're avoiding. It's not just the inner work, but, like, for me, it's like the work that I want to be doing out into the world, how I want to be of service. And, like, taking my power back, taking my initiative back, my willpower, that divine masculine, to change it and to take responsibility. It's like, hey, if my finances are like this, I create my reality. I'm either a victim or I'm 100% free to create what I want. And my reality is just reflecting back to me the decisions I'm making and where am I avoiding taking responsibility. And then what do I gain from that? And as I'm figuring out what am I gaining, what is this version of me gaining from this, I can just start doing the work. Like, I was listening to this thing, and it's like we can get stuck forever in this whole, like, we need to heal, and We need to like do all this inner work, and we can't avoid it. But it's the whole like you got to move through it. It's not just feeling it. It's really is just taking back your power. And this is where the dragon comes in too. And the thing is, I've been in and out of this dragon energy, this power. And it's not just power force, it's love of self and others. It's just like it's magnetic. And I know I'm shifting. And as I take responsibility, things shift. Like even today, I was driving. I was like, I told myself that I cannot be in a relationship right now because I'm healing or blah 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 blah. And I said, fuck that. No, you know what? I because then that narrative is like I can't be in a relationship. That's the program that's running. And I'm like, no, no, you know what? I'm calling in a divine partner and I can just show all sides of myself and be honest, take full accountability and responsibility for everything that I have, but to just have someone witness me. It's like we said earlier, sometimes you just not just want, but we need someone to witness us, to be able to access parts of ourselves that we have hidden. And just having that one person there to rewire that so that we can go out there and do the thing we need to do. And that's why we rise together because the person witnessing is transforming with you. If they can hold the space, they're rising too in their power. And the dragon is masculine and feminine, and we talk about the Sophia dragon tribe. I mean, Sophia, Mary Magdalene energy is on the rise, baby, and it's fucking powerful. Like she's here. She's amazing, and she's asking us men to rise, to have those twin dragons just like dance with each other because that's what we're here to do. And just being honest, what's coming through, like again, just doing the work, but like, why haven't I been? What is it? It's because you know what? I'm accepting it. I'm afraid of what people are gonna. I was afraid of what people are gonna think. Like, who are you to rise? Like they say this thing, it keeps coming. I see this in videos. Like when you start stepping into your power, you're gonna trigger the fuck out of people, and they're gonna project their shit onto you. And for us sensitive people, we have always been feeling these projections. Like, who do we need to be? And so when we get that, it's like we have to have that inner core. And we do that by taking our power back and being the powerful, fucking majestic masterpieces that we are. Like, fuck that. Fuck, like, making ourselves feel small, hiding ourselves. Like, we can feel like scared shitless as we're doing it, but that's true courage. Courage isn't like not feeling it, it's just moving through it regardless. And that's the work that I feel like I had been avoiding and I'm moving through that. But even there, like you've known me in Costa Rica, you've seen the things that I did and have done and how I've grown. Like man, if I could go back to the version I was 7 years ago, I would be like, oh my God, yo, look at you. You're fucking fantastic. You're a human being. You're authentically going through this and you're surrounded by these amazing people that you can connect with so deeply. And last thing that's coming up for me, I've just been crying like a lot. And I don't even know why I'm crying, but I think it's just because of the sheer amount of pressure, negative pressure I've put on myself on the inside and grieving the passing of that version of me, taking power away from that voice and bringing it back to me and connecting myself back with my inner divinity and with God. And also being humble and letting it move through me and actually have those glimmers come back in my life. The glimmers being those moments where you're just like everything just stands still and you just see the beauty of life. You feel that connection to the heart of life and yourself. And the last thing that's come out is just like a lot of body regulation too. Like it's tough to do this when your nervous system is just fried. Somatic breath work, just breath work, somatics, stretching, physical activity, but mostly just being witnessed, man. Like that's what I'm feeling more and more called to just in the work that I do with my clients. It's like that's what I tell them. Like, I'm here to reawaken that inner fire in you, that dragon in you. And all the shit that stands in the way is actually the fuel for that fire to just burn, just burn, not uncontrollably, but just this focused burn that just clears the path for the passion and joy to come through. And a sense of feeling safe with yourself so that now your partner and the people around you in your community and in your tribe and in the work that we do and how we are of service to others, that they can feel safe and that they are now given permission, not that they need it, but just by you rising and you being in your power, you give them permission to do the same. And the anger is a good way to start, man. Like we were looking at the Hawkins scale, and like anger, shame and guilt are at the bottom, but anger is actually much higher. Anger in many ways, and we were talking about this in the last podcast with Abby. And for those listening, description down below, and in the description you can have a listen to that. It's like anger is a gateway to power. Shame is a gateway to power. Let's change the script. Let's flip the script on this fucking thing. Like, let's go. Okay, that was a lot. Jakey, what's coming up for you? How are you feeling? I see you've been smiling and nodding a lot, so that's good. That's good. Okay, tell me what's going on. What's coming up for
I'm just
you?
with it. I'm just with it. I'm here now. I'm just taking
that
it all in. I'm
that
just
was
witnessing.
oh
No,
yeah.
like so much there that is beautifully articulated. Shame being this gateway to power, being a gateway to, and the way that I hear power is freedom, like freedom of expression, freedom internally to be able to fully express ourselves because every pain point, every shame point can be liberated to the degree in which now I'm free to operate. I'm free to expand. I'm free to claim all of my greatness, all of my expansiveness, all of my power. That visual of the twin dragons really painted this extremely, even just the two of us chatting kind of feels like it has that energy to it, which I love. And recognizing that, for men specifically as well, or masculine energetic individuals, like the masculine loves to have that that structure. And when it comes to, as you were speaking, something stirred within me around recognizing that yes, we can validate and hold space for the things we're feeling. And a part of me believes there needs to be some sort of accountability, loving accountability or structure to be able to address where we're out of integrity, where there are holes, where we are stuck not doing the work, avoiding things, to have that sense of like the only way this, and like I love the image as I cross my hands in front of my face here and move them upwards. It's there is an ascension and an expansion, and that process comes by way of looking at the mat, like the things that we're avoiding. That's like this following the fear, it's following the avoidance, it's, and then to have that second counterpart to be able to witness, to be able to accountable, to be able to share loving community, to be able to expand in that form. Something about like community and being witnessed that holds such power in the realm of addressing shame and loving shame and liberating shame. That's one of my favorite terms for it, is to liberate shame, because I believe it does get liberated. It gets transmuted when it's witnessed, when it's called forth, when it's seen, and then loved and embraced, that it actually unlocks this entire newfound sense of freedom and power.
Mhm. I love that reflect. You know what? I'm actually like feeling my stomach, and that same sensation is it's in the same place, but it feels different. Now it actually feels like
Potential.
it potential. And you know what? Now that I'm reflecting on it, I've been like actually I think it's always been a power that actually wants to move. It's kind of like use this for your creativity. Do something with this. Like do something. Like boredom is it can be a little dangerous in that sense, right? Like how are we even bored? There's so much fun stuff to do, but like it's in the stomach. That's where the power wants to rise, right? not just through the sacral, but into the solar plexus. And it's what you said too, like liberate the shame, liberate it. And the word that comes through is like, we said witnessing, but then, I had a buddy, he's like confession, like just having people hold the space as you confess, not to anybody but yourself, to say it out loud. And because other people are watching, it just adds to the power. Not that you need them there. All the work we need to do ever or want to do on ourselves and anything we want to evolve in, we can always do on our own. But to have other people there, it also creates connection, right? It's a beautiful thing. Like, in our men's circle, we did that. Every group we've been in, we've done that. So, wow.
Total little side closing connection as well that I'm
Yes,
like
go
just
for it.
drawing that I wanted to drop
Please.
in. I'm
Please.
curious if for us, um, if shame is most prevalent in the sacral and in the gut, and we use food to suppress it, is this, and this is just like a general inquiry, but and maybe a lot of men experience this similarly, but because some of the deepest shame that men experience at a young age is going to be sexual, and that's going to be right in the sacral center, sexuality. And so if so much of that shame is sexual around, growing up, especially for our generation and this next one coming up with the amount of access to pornography, to even just this stuff on Instagram and TikTok and the internet, like how do you, there's so much there. And I'm wondering if that not is related in some way. And we don't have to go down that hole. We
Mhm.
don't have to explore that. I'm just like dropping it in.
I'm with you 100%. And in fact, a lot of the energetic, like literally energetic physical sensations have been in my manhood, around my manhood, in my like everything below my belly button. I felt it in my like limbs, next in my groin. I felt it like in my stomach, like the lower back at times, but mostly just like literally in the manhood. And there's shame there. There's insecurities there. There's just like, and again, say it out loud, anything from feeling like am I pleasing my partner, to like am I doing this right, like I'm not in my body, I want to connect but I feel disconnected because I'm not feeling good and safe within my own body, or I'm not feeling safe in this relationship, I'm not feeling safe with this person, or using sex as a distraction when it comes to sexuality, like just using it as another way to numb. And like to me, that's why I'm calling in someone where I can be in that space and we can just talk about this, like what's coming up. And honestly, I mean, from what I understand, not just the like a lot of women have experiences with this, like when it comes to their sexuality and sex in general. And men, us men, we've got the same thing going on. I feel like this is, this is where we can connect. That's why I said grief is a gateway to love, because everyone grieves about something. It's not just about losses, but it's about change and letting go of our old self and seeing the pain of the world and in other people. Like sometimes we just like, it's like, let's have a big group hug and let's just all cry together and just like squeeze each other tight. I feel like with sexuality, it's the same thing. Like I want to be witness there. I want to go into the shame and the insecurities, and I want to grow. I just want to be like, show me how you want to be loved. Show me how you want me to honor your body. Ask me the same, but like show me, like let's go into the sandbox together and bring the playfulness in. Like it's got to be playful. And you said it, power is, if shame is the gateway to power, then that's the gateway to freedom. it's it's just, it's not just taking responsibility, but it's also taking responsibility for what it is that we want and speaking our truth and doing that with grace, not hiding our voice, controlling our emotions but expressing them, expressing our truth. It's not, they say the divine masculine is like, it's not, hey, you made me feel this way. It's like, no, I am feeling this. This is what I'm feeling. it's a difference. It's like I'm still owning that. So I know we're coming to the end here. I just want to ask you, throw the question back to you. If you want to dive into that, like around sexuality or anything that's coming up for you right now around everything that we've talked about. So
Yeah.
tell me, is there anything you want to share?
Yeah. So open there. I love that because it is. That's one that that I struggled with for a really long time. And what really came up was sexuality, was performance. There was so much performance anxiety around being witnessed, about being good enough in bed, about staying hard enough, about staying for long enough, about not like ejaculating too quickly or not being able to get off or all of these things or making the entire thing about the orgasm or not being able to please her in a way that feels good. And all of it was, for me, sexual shame used to feel like it sat down here in the manhood, in the gut, but it was like it was tethered to my throat chakra and there was bars and it was like equally as heavy in the gut as it was in like it cuts any sense of communication. For me is how it felt. Like I can't speak. It removed communication from anything in that space.
Mm.
And so my capacity to have needs met in that space was like, well, you're gonna have to read my mind and know exactly what to do. And that's kind of the programming, right? Like you watch enough pornography, you should know exactly how to treat a woman, and she should know how to treat you. And it's so brutal because that's the furthest thing from the reality. And that's so ill portrayed for all men to, and knowing that most men literally learn via pornography. Like that's their first sexual education, form of sexual education, which is so sad. And it's just like something that weighs on me because I know that I came up through that as well. And so as you're speaking, just recognizing that that was something that I really did battle with for a long time. And I can speak to the fact that being in a partnership where there is open communication, ridiculously healing and transformative on liberating shame in all of the spaces, including in the sexual space, where it's the pace slows down, getting things wrong is okay, making it fun and playful instead of super serious. Like it's all just gotta be like lip biting and like eye gazing and like super, it's like, no, it can be fun. Like that's, that's like, what? So there is so much healing to be done in that space. And I love that you mentioned like that narrative of I'm not healed enough to be in a relationship versus maybe a relationship is exactly what I need to heal. Um, and I'll leave it there because there's so much we could just continue to rabbit hole down. But all of that to kind of wrap that like shame needs to be witnessed and it needs to be loved and it is the gateway to power or freedom. Feels like contained. My brain wants to wrap that.
Dude, but like it just like I can just notice how open everything is flowing right now. Like I feel a sense of excitement and possibilities where before it was just like this closed world. And
Mm,
in the end, it's just like I really appreciate your vulnerability with that. Like all the things you said about what comes up for you within the realm of sexuality, I can resonate with all of those, or I resonate with all of those, and I'm sure many of the men listening resonate with that too. And that's where the playfulness comes in, and the intimacy, and the vulnerability to just say, "Hey, I don't know. Like, show me. Like, let's sandbox this thing. Let's just like talk about this. Like, it's like, and I know we're coming up here, and just like I know there's so much we could go into. One thing I wanted to share, like that's been really powerful for me, and I'm calling this in for my next relationship as well, is not to jump into sex right away. Like not to like actually create that space of unconditional love and intimacy and vulnerability and share what is my shame, what's been my past, like where have I come from, and keep the clothes on as long as we can, like for days or weeks, just like keep them on so that when you're actually in that physically intimate space where there is penetration and acceptance of the other body by the woman, that you both feel safe. You know you can speak up because you have been speaking up. That's power and freedom right there. So, man, this has been a journey, brother. Wow. Like,
You feel that? It's been a ride. It's
wow.
been
Like
a
we've
ride.
landed, we've landed like, it's just like touchdown, touchdown. Ooh, you've arrived at your destination. The temperature outside is fantastic, and the sun is shining. And brother, thank you for creating this space and for opening this up. I feel inspired and deeply blessed and grateful to have spent this time with you. And we're gonna have to do this some more. We've got plenty of stuff to talk about. um, I love you, brother. Just for everybody listening in, um, you can find Jake on Instagram. I'm going to post all of your details down below if you want to reach out to Jake for coaching, if you want one of his Hug Your Bros t-shirts and other merch that's just freaking amazing. And any other things that Jake is working on. If you're with Jake, magic's happening and playfulness is guaranteed and empowerment is how do I say this? Is is the truth of any interaction with Jake. I don't know. I was going to say is guaranteed as well. It's just all guaranteed. Like you can't go wrong with Jake. Jake, I love you, brother. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for co-creating this with me. To everybody listening, thank you for co-creating this space with us. Have an amazing day. Yeah, Jake, thanks for being you, brother. Love you, man.
Big love, D. Love
All
you
right.
too, brother.
Ciao, brother. Bye.
So good.